This is what I sound like without a mic. This is what I sound like with a mic. Preferences?
With a mic.
Mic's better. Okay. Hey, nice to see you all. This is a shit ton of people. I'm kind of surprised. I'm going to assume that many of you are here not by choice, so I'll just do my best. Make it tolerable. It's real nice to be here. Everyone's been super. Thanks so much to Fanshawe Arts and Letters for having me. And as I said, it's great to see you all on a Thursday afternoon. Hey! And I grew up in London, and I always sort of thought of Fanshawe as like Western's like cooler younger brother. And I have two stepbrothers, and one is like, he's like a doctor, and he's like really handsome, and he's like really successful, and his wife's really beautiful, and he's kind of a dick. And I kind of think of him as Western. And then my other brother is like just like a good dude, and he's a plumber, and didn't do that well in school sometimes, and kind of got through. He's just a quality guy, and I kind of think of him as like Fanshawe. Like, and that's my own bias. And I mean, I just think of you guys as cool. I mean, you had a riot. Was anyone here in that? Like, I'm not gonna snitch or anything. But, yeah, was it cool? Was it like, what was it like? Was it crazy?
Terrifying.
What?
It was terrifying.
Terrifying. Yeah.
It was awesome and terrifying.
Right, that's kind of what this book, this novel, this isn't like a segue to sell you shit, but this novel is like that, and like, do you guys remember in London, England, a couple summers ago, all the kids went really crazy, and there was like a lot of looting, and just kind of like mob mentality, and that was a lot of what kind of informed the writing of this book. So, and by cool, I don't mean I think it's like good to write, but I think it's really, I think it's really interesting the way that like big groups of people will sort of generate an energy that turns into like smashing shit and lighting mattresses on fire. So, hi. I'm not wearing a belt, this is the first time I'm wearing these pants, so if that goes badly, apologize. I used to have this like really awful landlord whose pants were always coming down, and I just remember I was like 20, probably like the same age as many of you guys around here, and I just remember like telling myself like I'll never be that guy, and his ass looked like two pieces of like folded bologna, like really pink. And I just see like it'd always be shit in my apartment that needed fixing like low too, so it was like down. And anyway, so that guy's butt too much, and I always said I would wear a belt in public, and I forgot today. So you don't need to know anything else about me. I wrote these two books. I've also written two others, one of which is a book of poems, kind of. They're not very good. But I did write it, so I'm going to read from it. Basically, I wrote this book, and while I was writing this book, I wrote this book as a kind of way of escaping the seriousness of this book and writing something really stupid and for fun. So my rules around writing the poems, such as they are, they're not really, there's probably real poets here who are going to laugh at me for this, but I woke up at like 4 in the morning. This is a cool thing to do if any of you like are into doing creative things or just want to access different parts of your brain. If you interrupt your sleep right in the middle of like a deep sleep cycle, you can you generate like really crazy creative stuff. Like if you're a musician, I have a few musician friends I've got doing this, and they end up writing really cool songs. And so the stuff that came out of this is kind of like from some level of subconscious, which is probably worrying, as you'll hear. The kind of shit that is going on beneath my actual thoughts that I vocalize. So yeah, I guess it's something Isaac Newton used to do, is interrupt his sleep, and then that's where a lot of his ideas are generated. So just a little tip. Okay, so I'm going to read a few of these poems, and then are there any questions now? I don't know. Already? No? At any point, if you have, like, not while I'm reading, that's rude, but like between, if you have questions, we can chat. Like, it's, we got 50 minutes to kill, so we're going to talk about something. This is a poem called Booty Call. My friend Steve got this booty call the other day. You have a collect call from fuck me. After he accepted the charges, Steve said, hello? And the lady on the end of the line said, laser? And Steve said, laser here. And things haven't been the same ever since. Steve makes me call him Laser now, see? Mainly because after that night he turned into a laser. You know the type. One of those guys who will take his shirt off at the park and can throw a frisbee like a ventriloquist, that is, into the distance and trickily. Laser came over this morning blaring New Rock from the Alpine system in his brand new Pontiac Sunfire. I barely recognized him. "You've changed, man," I told him on the way to my mom's sentencing. "Whatevs, brah," he said. "Whatevs." That's the other thing. Laser calls everyone brah now, and when the valet at the courthouse came to park his car, he just started dry humping the air in the parking lot, moaning, "That's it, baby, that's it," and pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping. That's the end of the poem. Don't clap, it's not worth it. This poem is called Who's Josh? This is more or less a true story. Who's Josh? That's the title. At the symphony, I was amazed to discover that the entire orchestra was playing the same song. Not one bassoonist or trumpet guy had succumbed to the urge to bust into something different. The conductor flapped his arms, and everyone blew or strummed or struck, and at the end the crowd rose clapping, all of us, at the same time, even me. Then I went home with Andrea, the one with the horse posters all over her apartment, and the horse magnets and horse figurines and horse bedspread and horse decorated dinnerware, and the horse knight glowing golden over the toilet. We did it to Enya on her futon, like always. Do you guys know who Enya is? Okay. Worst ever. Except, "Josh!" cried Andrea. I stopped mid-swirl. "Who's Josh?" "Josh?" "Josh." Josh, of course, was the name of the horse her father had gunned down in their backyard when Andrea was small. In the movie adaptation of The Godfather, a man awakens to a horse's head in bed with him. Khartoum was this horse's name. The following morning, after the symphony, Andrea awoke to a live horse tethered to the armoire, neighing, and which I had stolen under cover of night from the local butcher, a Frenchman. Sometimes, love is like picking up and holding to each ear a cat and listening for the music of the seas. That was a little better. Okay, poem. I'll read another poem. Not that one. No, that one. Should have planned for this, really, although this is taking time. This is called Natalie Portman, Listen. Remember her? Natalie Portman, Listen. This is the title. This is the first line. Natalie Portman, listen. They say the pen is mightier than the sword, but I'm inclined to believe that if I showed up at your mansion and held a 2-foot-long saber to your throat and said, "Marry me," it would achieve a lot more than these few feeble words. But we're getting off on the wrong foot, and I don't even own a sword. Natalie, I just want to get off with you. I want to kiss you all over your body, but mostly between your legs where the vagina part is. Or not even. I would be happy to only kiss your mouth, slow or fast or medium, depending how it is you like to be kissed. I would do that totally. Although, I will certainly take sex if that is also going to be available. I don't even care that the only good movie you've ever been is The Professional, and you're like 13 and not even hot yet, at least not legally. This poem's creepy. I wrote this a long time ago. All the others have sucked. See how strong my love is? I'm willing to overlook everything about you except how pretty you are. I wish someone would make a movie about you the old way, in which beautiful women were without apology objectified by the camera, but with reverence. I think even Eve Sedgwick would put down her dukes for a moment and just watch. There would be so many soft focused close-ups of your face, looking off screen with your mouth parted slightly and your eyelids half lidded, and the world would sigh a little bit at each one. I need to admit something. The only Jewish wedding I ever went to, I showed up late. They'd run out of yarmulkes. It was in a hotel. I hadn't brought a date. I hadn't been allowed. I'm not very tall, and they had me seated next to a woman who seemed at least twice my height, so when it came time to dance, I didn't. What I'm trying to get at is that your body is a synagogue, Natalie, and I would purchase and wear a yarmulke if you chose to let me in. I would come on time. I would dance a saucy Semitic dance. I would recite from the Torah all your favorite parts, if it would help. Or none, if that would be preferable. Fuck, Natalie, what do you want from me? I'm tired of guessing. This isn't a relationship, not what we have. A relationship is about communication, and I feel like I'm hollering into a tin can attached by string to a star made of David, made of restraining orders. Natalie Portman, all I hope is that this poem makes you come over to my house. I wouldn't even have to be there. You could just breeze through, and when I return home, it would be a game to see if you'd left your scent on my furniture or a pee in my toilet. I would never flush it down. I want you inside me, Natalie. Be my Valentine. If for any reason you cried a river of tears, I would be happy to drown in it, or at least flounder for a little while, waving intermittently at you on the shore. Or I would kill an animal for you. I would kill a wolf or bear, or I would save an endangered bear from poachers and kill them instead. Or kill no one, just run through the fields of some alpine location with you, with the breeze in our hair and the bears and wolves and poachers cavorting around us, and violins. We could just hold one another on a bearskin rug by a fireplace on fire, Natalie, at your mansion. There would be jazz, Natalie, and wine, and if we started to take our shirts off, the camera would pull respectfully away up over the white leather couch, across the room, past the portrait I had painted of you, Natalie, in my extremely awesome loft-style artist studio on Manhattan Island, New York City, New York, where I know you also live, Natalie, and I would be living casually at the time too, and then the camera would turn out the window to the night, Natalie, and the stars, Natalie Portman, and start to zoom, and the Foley guys would be doing love sounds while we started dryly humping, sly as teens, and soon the only thing on screen would be the big, white, amazing moon. 20 minutes down. This is called Emmanuel Lewis is Dead. Do people remember who that is? He played Webster on a TV show called Webster. Dating myself. He's a small man. He has a disease where you don't age or you don't look like you're aging. Anyway, yes?
Was he the kid that was always like, what you talking about, Lewis?
Gary Coleman,
Willis.
same disease.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah, different kid, similar, same disease, yeah. So one night at a bar, a friend and I got in a fight because I was sure Emmanuel Lewis was dead. And this was probably like before smartphones, so we actually had to go home to find out. And then we went home and he like taunted me. I think I owed him $100 or something stupid. So this is the second last poem of the evening. And then there's other shit after. Emmanuel Lewis is dead. Not really, not yet. Although you'd assume so, wouldn't you? But consider, if I were to write down the words, Emmanuel Lewis is dead, and I waited long enough, they would eventually be true. And maybe the same could be said of anything. God is dead, and so is Emmanuel Lewis, and so am I, motherfucker, and so are you. This is a series poem called Autumn Day. It's by a German poet named Rainer Maria Rilke, which I translated from the German, except I don't speak German. But I did a good job. Autumn Day. Lord, it is time. The summer was too huge. Lay your shadow on the sundial, and in the meadow give the wind refuge. Bid the last fruit swell on tree and vine for 2 more sun-drenched days. Coax to their end, make from them the sweetest wine. Whoever has no home now will never have one. Whoever is alone will always be alone. Will stay up nights, read, write long letters, and wander the avenues up and down while the restless leaves are blown. You can clap for that because I didn't write it. How are we doing? Any questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to read a story. This is a book of stories I wrote in the 2000s, earlies, and it came out in 2008. It's called The Withdrawal Method. We won a bunch of prizes. I'm going to read a story called where is it? It's called The Film We Made About Dads, and I could have sworn it was in here. I gotta find it. 59.
You got a question over here.
Yeah, sure. Hit it. Where are you? Oh, hi.
It's because your book is titled Withdrawal Method. That is mean that it's about pulling people out on those insects.
Yes. Yes, it's about that. That's the contraceptive method. The withdrawal method involves removing the penis from the orifice in which it is inserted prior to ejaculation. Right? I didn't catch all that, but sorry. Are you saying it's not an effective method of contraception? Yeah, no, you can. It's not good. It's not a good way to do it. I don't recommend it. Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. Don't do it. It's a bad idea. It goes badly 67% of the time, I think. This is not advice. It's just a title. The title of the book is. There's a few instances of that act, I guess, in the book, but the title is kind of meant in broader terms. Like, this was my first book. I mean, this one doesn't really count, as you heard. And I'd never written a book before, and I just found, like, I'm a pretty social guy, like, you know, like hanging out with my friends, and it was so lonely to be working on a book, just sitting at my computer all the time, and this kind of, like, the method of withdrawing from society was very alien to me. So that was like one aspect of writing it, and then in the stories, there's a lot of characters that kind of pull away from emotional things or like difficult things. So there's, I hope that the title works on a few levels. And there's like some other reasons too, but I don't want to give away all my secret recipes. So that's kind of title, but yeah, it's not I'm not recommending, as an ex-girlfriend of mine called, the old pull and pray. This is a story called The Film We Made About Dads. In the first scene of the film we made about dads, we caught them as children well before they became dads themselves, when their own dads were full-on capital D dads with mustaches who had been in the war. We got some great shots of the dads at age 8 swinging from the monkey bars in the schoolyard playground. Afterwards, we interviewed them about their goals. The answers: astronaut, fireman, psychiatrist, florist, psycho killer, LeBron James. We asked them, describe your dad in one word. The unanimous response was, mean. Next we found the dads at 16 getting handjobs on the couch. The cameras were rolling. The dads were oblivious and said nothing, just rolled over on top of their lovers and fully clothed, humped away until something damp oozed through their jeans. That's kind of the title, a little bit. Can you edit that so I look better? Wondered the dads, wiping themselves clean in the bathroom. We smiled, keeping our distance, and told them we'd see what we could do. In college, the dads grew beards. They bought cars, and one night tried acid. We had run out of funding and couldn't shoot. Remember this, we encouraged the dads, who were giggling at rain. A few years later, we received a grant to resume filming. But then the dads were done college and had found wives to marry. At the altars, the dads said, I do, and the wives said, I do, and the dads kissed their new wives, and the wives kissed back, and they ran out of the church while people threw rice at them and cheered. The dads and their wives went to Niagara Falls, where they stared silently into all that water and thought, and later fell asleep with their shoes on. Maybe edit in some love, we told the post-production crew. Okay, they said. The dads and wives bought houses. The wives taught grade school and brought home children's drawings that they pinned to their fridges with magnetic fruit. The wives looked at the drawings and said, "Ah," in a pointed way. The dads were stuck in middle management. They built workshops in the garages. It's my workshop in there, they told the wives. It's my space. We went out into the garages and panned over the workshops, over the workbenches and the workshops and the tools that would rarely get used. This is golden stuff, we said to one another. We were making a film about dads. There were moments we didn't get. The dads told us about nights of laughter with their wives. They told us about moments of tenderness, shared joy or sorrow, a walk in the park and ducks. But the cinematographers union allowed us a cameraman only for a certain number of hours. We would show up in the morning and the dads would say, "You should have seen us last night." But we could only shrug and say, "Sorry." Then the wives got pregnant. The dads inseminated the wives with their sperm, which shot out of a dad's penis and into the corresponding wife's vagina, etc. And 9 months later, a baby plopped out like a prize. That's not really how it works. We had to find some stock footage for the delivery because the doctors wouldn't let the crew into the delivery room. The result was a beautiful montage with flowers blooming and shots of the universe and the emergence into the world of living things, hippos and such, all set to a specially commissioned soundtrack of synthesized brass and drum machine. At the hospital, the dads stood in the hallway with unlit cigars wagging from their mouths, talking to anyone who would listen. "My wife is having a baby," they hollered, thrusting a cigar in whoever's direction. The person, usually no one the dads knew, would decline the cigar and back away nervously, as if from a bear. When the dads saw the baby shriveled and purple in their wives' arms, they declared, "That's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life," and then cupped the baby's skulls in their hands as though they were testing fruit. The babies cooed and gurgled, and so did the dads. It was unclear who was imitating whom. 2 years later, there was a plan for another baby, and the process repeated itself. The sperm, the vagina, the cigars, the unintelligible exchange of sounds. We used different stock footage this time, cross-cut with scenes of the first child, confused and alone in a field of lavender. This we staged using a blue screen. Now with 2 kids, the dads were really cooking. Along with the children, they had gas barbecues, station wagons, digital cable. They were no longer stuck in middle management. They were somewhere better. The kids got older, and the dads coached their soccer teams. The dads drank beer on Sunday afternoons and watched football. But the dads might add something incongruous. "I also have season's tickets to the opera," they might say. Or, "It's fine if one of the kids turns out gay." These things, we decided, would be best snipped right out of our film. When it was time for the children to move away from home, the dads were strong. The wives wept in the driveways as the children pulled away in cars with couches strapped to the roofs, and the dads held the wives and stroked their hair. It would later be easy for us to erase the tears that ran down the dads' faces. We have computer programs for that sort of business. Then the dads became granddads. Their sons were now dads. In minivans, the sons brought grandchildren, and the dads crouched in front of the babies among them and produced noises as they had at babies they themselves had once sired. For older grandchildren, small change was produced from unlikely places, behind the grandchildren's ears or the couch, and then displayed magically. "Grandpa," the grandchildren said. When it was time to go, the dads hugged their sons and their grandchildren and marveled in the driveway that the boys among them, although they had their shoes on the wrong feet, would also, one day, somehow be dads. After some time, it became difficult for the dads to sit down, nearly impossible to urinate. The dad's pee came in a dribble. There was some putting off and some more putting off, but at the wives' insistence, a medical examination confirmed it. The dads had very advanced stage cancer of the prostate. There was no hope. The cancer was everywhere. They would be dead in 6 months, said the doctors, with their hands on the dad's shoulders and a look of caring in their eyes. We scored this segment of the film with a single cello sawing away, sad and lonely. Back at home, we took long, long takes of the dads standing at the window, watching cars pass by on the street. The wives hovered nearby and drank sherry. When the dads died, no one knew quite what to say.
Nice.
When the dads died, no one quite knew what to say. At the funerals, former co-workers made speeches about dedication that left everyone feeling empty. This we recognized would be impossible to convey in our film unless we resorted to voiceover. But we shot what we could. The mourners and flowers and the open coffins with the dads lying inside, silent and still. People walked by, peering in, some of them sniffling back tears. It was time, declared the wives, sensibly. They left and went back home to stand in the parlors of their houses, where they nibbled triangular sandwiches and accepted the condolences of family and strangers with polite nods, whispering, "Thank you, thank you, thank you everyone." When it was all over, when the wives were left alone in their houses, when even their children had driven away in minivans, we rushed back to the studio to put together a rough cut of our film about dads. We had spent years making a film about dads, and now the dads were gone, and our financial backers had expectations. Our crew had been there for all the critical moments. We had captured everything in the dads' lives, from the formative years to the golden deformative years. Now it was time to make some art. And there were reels and reels of film piled around us in the studio, but we just sat there, looking around, at the computers, at the rushes, at one another, not quite knowing where to begin. So I'm going to read like probably like a 10-minute chunk of this book. This is the novel. This is the novel People Park that came out in 2012. It's about it's set on an island city that I made up. There's like a map that my friend Chris Tucker, not the Chris Tucker, but a Chris Tucker drew. Though it would be cool if the Chris Tucker had drawn this map. And it's about there's a celebration going on in this island city, and they get kind of like a celebrity magician to come and do a trick. And the magician makes the bridge vanish that connects the city to the mainland. And this is where the Fanshawe riots come in, or sort of like collective mayhem. I was really inspired by some of the events around Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans in 2004, 2005, and a bunch of other stuff too. So it's a pretty long and kind of wacky book, but I'm going to read a section that takes place the night before this magician, who's called an illustrationist. His name is Raven. The night before he does his trick. So there's like a dinner. So the characters in this are kind of like, there's this guy, this illustrationist, and there's a mayor who nobody really cares about. And I think the rest is kind of self-explanatory. Are there any questions or comments before I start? Okay. Okay. In the banquet hall, waiters hustled about to a tinkle of silverware and the burble of 50 conversations. The pepper and steel odor of roast meat wafted smokily from the kitchen. Schnapps-based aperitifs had given way to cider. The bubbles lifted ember-like in every crystal flute. Distributed among the 24 tables in black tie and ball gowns were local dignitaries, various reps of cultural associations, several pink-drunk pillars of the business community, sports stars tautly muscled and stuffed into too-tight evening wear, nervous academics from the institute and their embarrassing spouses, the beautiful and rich, the vapid and canny. Upon the stage worked the island's artist laureate, Loopy, a squat woman in a paisley caftan and matching beret. Loopy's assistant, mousy and morose behind a curtain of bangs, handed over chisels and picks with which Loopy hacked a potentially avian shape from a block of ice. At the head table, with the central positioning of newlyweds at their nuptial feast, sat the mayor and Raven. She doffed her mayoral sash in favor of a power suit, though a nick in her stockings had run from ankle to knee. He'd clipped a bow tie to his tracksuit. His head seemed especially polished, all disco ball sparkle and gleam. Here were the appetizers: fish bladders and a buttery broth, an antenna of sparrow grass sprouted from their midst. Laughter stabbed into the air, glasses clinked, waitstaff cranked limb-sized pepper mills, and in the kitchen refilled empty cider carafes from a rubber tub by the compost bin. The mayor watched Raven stir his fish bladders. "The whole menu tonight comprises gourmet selections from one of our local businesses," she said. "Everything's local. The ciders from the orchard on the east side of People Park." Raven wasn't listening. He plucked a bladder from the bowl, examined it with a dubious squint, and tentatively slid it into his mouth. Face contorting in instant horror, he gulped cider, replicated the horror face, signaled a waiter, made sure the milk wasn't local. It wasn't. Commanded the largest glass possible. Drank it. Then to the mayor. "You were saying?" There was more to her little treatise. Once upon a time, she could dovetail any subject with civic pride, but she lost the thread. Gazing around the room, she tried to feel something for her constituents beyond mild loathing. In the last half-decade of her incumbency, she began to feel first distant from these people, then estranged. Life on the island had become too easy. Everyone took her reforms for granted. No one considered how things used to be. Look at them, she thought. These people owe their comfort to me and they don't even realize it. Well, I should probably say something, said the mayor, pushed back from the table, closed her eyes for a quick personal affirmation before addressing the guests. But when she opened her eyes, Raven was standing on his chair, arms extended in victory. Yes, he cooed. Yes, yes! Around the room, people struck glassware with forks. Every head in the room swiveled toward the illustrationist, faces alight. What would he do? Yes, he cried, yes, conducting his audience like a maestro. Put down your forks, please, friends, welcome. Yet here I am welcoming you, and it is I who should thank you for being welcomed, for you have welcomed me here graciously. And so it is with grace. I thank you for this welcome. He bowed. Everyone tinged their glasses again. They couldn't resist. The banquet hall was a cauldron of delight. Ignoring this, the mayor carved into her fish bladder, out-hissed a little gasp, a nautical aroma. Please, no more tinging, said Raven, please. I've been all around the world. In this city, I've rarely had so keen a welcome. Don't applaud. Seriously, stop it and listen. He climbed down from his chair and began to walk around the room. The mayor slipped the fish bladder into her mouth, the moist, withered cyst of it. Tomorrow night, he continued, though I have yet to discern the specifics, I will be illustrating something truly, I think, spectacular. As always, it will be a magic that of course already exists but remains unseen. My job as ever is just to reveal this magic to you, to illustrate what in your hearts you already know, what you already believe. My work is only to remove the fog that obscures the truth. The air had gone tense and glassy. The mayor chewed, mouth flooding with a sour, silty mucus. Raven paused beside Loopy in her sculpture. A raven, he asked. She curtsied. He patted her beret in approval, then was on the move again. Friends, tomorrow night all I can offer is an uncovering. Each of my illustrations is only that, merely scratching at a frosted window to reveal the hidden wonders on the other side. But with a shift in light, every window can become, what? A mirror. He smiled, snatched a napkin off a nearby table. Please, all of you, follow along with your own serviettes. Everyone in the ballroom folded their napkins as they were shown, once in half, once diagonally, doubled over, pinched in, and tucked. Choking down the fish bladder, the mayor swept up her napkin and endeavored to catch up. Though with each step, her creation looked less like Raven's, like anyone's or anything. The illustrationist said, now we have envelopes. And what do you think might be inside this envelope? Perhaps we should open it to see. Around the dining hall, the packages were unfolded. The mayor's collapsed, and murmurs rippled around the room. At a neighboring table, into the fabric was some personality's self-portrait. And so it was with everyone, hundreds of effigies of the attendees' own faces rendered in striking realism on the napkins. The mayor's own napkin bore only a brown smear, hideous, possibly fecal. See? The illustrationist laughed. Now you see, just a simple illustration. The mayor launched to her feet, clapping. Wonderful, wonderful. On behalf of us all, thanks a bundle for the trick. But now let's eat. You're our guest, not our entertainer. And we're here to celebrate the park. After all, 25 years of People Park. Let's not forget. It's the Silver Jubilee. She sensed hysteria mounting in her voice. She paused and breathed. Please, sir, relax. Enjoy the fine cuisine. A round of applause for our guest. Hands tapped. The main course arrived, squab with toasted almonds and steamed sparrowgrass on the side. Raven slouched in his chair, draped his napkin over his face, appeared to nap. Though the mayor's meal tasted weirdly bilious, she ate every bite, sawing the sour gray meat into little cubes that she chewed to oblivion and swallowed, until all that remained were bones, a rubbery dimpled flap of skin. The dessert carts began to circle the room. Raven peeked out, snatched the napkin from his face, leapt to his feet, snapped 3 times and screamed. Who wants to see, before we retire, one final illustration? Hooting. Feet stamped, laps were drummed. Desserts were held aloft in salute. Raven slid behind the mayor, took her napkin, and placed his hands, as heavy and hot as fire-baked stones, on her shoulders. She squirmed. He squeezed. From his fingers, heat entered and spread through her body, along her arms into her fingertips, through her torso down to her feet. Her face tingled, relaxed. Raven released her, turned to a passing dessert cart, said, "May I?" to the young woman wheeling it, swept all the flats into the white cloth, shook the bundle and opened it, empty. Wild applause. "Please, Mrs. Mayor, please, if you could just lie upon this cart." The crowd cheered, "Mayor, Mayor, Mayor." Summoned with a curling brown finger as a patient called to a surgeon's table, the mare lay down on the dessert cart, her legs hung off at the knee. She felt nothing beyond distant, dreamy worry, almost a memory of the emotion even as it occurred. The illustrationist draped the sheet over her midsection. In his hand materialized a whip with the grip of two knotted snakes. Cutting a woman in half, intoned the illustrationist, is delicate business. It is most important to ensure that she remains, Raven fingered the whip, alive at both ends. He tossed her napkin up and snapped the whip. The fabric fluttered in two halves to the floor. The brown stain had vanished. All this seemed vague. The room shimmered. The mare felt herself not quite falling asleep, but fading. She was only hazily aware of the illustrationist looming over her, grinning, eyes like two black slots. "I hope you can forgive me," he whispered, "for what I'm about to do." The crowd waited. The illustrationist stroked her midsection with the whip, lazy and serpentine. He closed his eyes. Once, twice, 3 times he stroked the mare's body with the whip. Then, with drama, he cocked it behind his head. "It has been said by one of my predecessors," said Raven, "that one receives just desserts in accordance with one's beliefs." His eyes opened. In them the mare saw herself reflected, and he screamed, "So be it," and the whip swooshed through the air. There was a moment of silence and stillness, as if everyone in the dining hall had inhaled at once. This was broken by a clumsy, clumping noise, like a piece of furniture knocked over. A gasp resounded around the room, and then silence. The mare felt a surge of satisfaction. The trick had failed. But they were applauding now, a few scant claps that swelled quickly into a standing ovation. People roared and shrieked. Someone smashed a glass. Someone cackled. Someone whispered, "Holy fuck, look at that." Someone fell to his knees, tears in his eyes. "You see," laughed Raven, nudging the cart forward. The mare looked down. By its wheels, her legs lay in a heap on the floor. Okay, thanks. So these 2 books are for sale. Well, the paperback version of this is for sale, which is cheaper. This is not, because no one dares to sell it. But you could probably get it on the internet. I don't know. Does anyone have any questions, like about anything? I mean, not anything. Don't be weird. But yeah.
I was wondering about Filming Dads. Was there a moment that you made a decision to write the poem Filming Dads instead of Moms?
Yes.
Okay, why did you decide Filming Dads?
Well, one of the sort of major themes of this book, and one of the things I was interested in writing these stories was like different portrayals of masculinity in popular culture, and relationships between guys, whether they're brothers, friends, enemies. There's a story in here about Jacques Cousteau and Pablo Picasso. And this one I was primarily interested in how we think about fatherhood culturally. And it just was in sort of keeping with the other stories I was writing in the book, which was sort of like looking at a cliched idea and trying to cut away a little bit at it.
Okay.
So yeah, it was very much a concerted wanting to talk about fathers. Yeah. I'm writing a book now about my mom. So that's different.
Is it humorous?
It's, yeah, my mom's hilarious. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, she's funny. I don't know if the book's funny. Yeah?
Which of your works would you say you're most proud of?
I'd like to think that I'm most proud of what I'm working on right now, which is actually not the book about my mom. That's the next one, but I'm sort of, that's in the planning stages, and I'm working on this other book that's actually about my dad, and about, I just got back from Kashmir in northern India. So I don't know if people know what that is, but it's been basically in a state of civil war for 25 years, and it's just kind of calmed down. So I'm writing about my family's experiences there, and so yeah, so I think I'm proud of that now. But what happens when you're a writer is that, like, you write something. I don't know if anybody has this experience, even like writing stuff for school, or if you write for your own time, or do anything. But you do it, and you're like, I'm a genius. This is amazing. And you go away, and you come back, and you're like, oh my god, I'm an idiot. This is garbage. So I'm not at that stage yet. But like, talk to me in a week, and I might be there. So like, yeah, I just think it's good to, like, whatever you do, try to get better with each thing. Like, try to do something new. Sort of like look at the flaws of your previous work, and then kind of try to improve on. I mean, in anything in life, not just writing.
E-books, is there, like, do you have a website that we can...
I don't have a website because I'm, like, illiterate, computer illiterate, but all the books are, except probably this, available as ebooks, yeah. And my publisher, House of Nancy, just published last year just a single like standalone short story, like a news story that's not in this book. That I'm really proud of that story. It's like really sweet. It's like a love story, and that's available as like for $1.99, which is a deal, as like a standalone ebook. But yeah, the book should be. I think everything now, like from major publishers, is coming out as ebooks. Do you read on a like e-reader?
Kiddo?
On a Kindle?
Yeah.
Yeah. The book of poems is called All Our Grandfathers Are Ghosts, and it's published by Snare Books, which is a small Montreal publisher. Who actually, I mean, Snare is a really good, they've since folded, not because of me, it was unrelated. But Snare published a lot. They used to have this experimental poetry contest, and they published a ton of really good, like, it's kind of like, it's a bit of an honor to be part of that publishing house. They're like a cool, small, indie, experimental publisher. And they put out a lot of really good stuff. Yeah?
What made you want to be a writer?
Well, I'll tell you a story. When I was like 3, I duct taped my sister to a Playmobil. Playmobil used to like put out these like, it was like a horse with wheels. It was like this little plastic thing. And in the 80s, when I was a kid, we had a lot of them. Everybody had one of these things. And I duct taped my sister to it and pushed her down the stairs. She was like a year old. And my mom, and it wasn't vindictive. My mom, like it was like, my mom was enraged, of course, because I killed my sister. And she asked me, like, why did you do that? And I said, oh, I just wanted to see what would happen. Like, I was curious. And my mom said, next time you get that instinct, write a story about it instead of like risking someone's life. So I kind of haven't looked back since then. It's like any weird thought I have, instead of like going like, oh, I wonder what it would be like to like shoot someone. No, I think I'll just like write a story about it instead. So I don't really want to shoot it. Yeah.
Tell us about the Arthur Ellis Award that you won and what you won it for. And lastly, can you give us maybe your best tip for young aspiring writers?
Yes. The Arthur Ellis Award is I won an Arthur Ellis Award for crime fiction. It's a crime award, and I won it for a short story that is like a kind of a hitman story set in Little India, and it's like I was reading all this stuff about like Bollywood and Bombay gangsters. If anyone wants to read an amazing book about crime in India, there's a book called Maximum City that is like just one of the most entertaining and terrifying books I've read in a long time. So I was reading that and like reading about Bollywood. The crime aspect of Bollywood, which I'm sure happens in Hollywood too. So the story was about that, and the award itself is the coolest thing. It's this trophy, and it's a hangman like with a noose, and if you pull a string, its arms and legs go like this, so it's like sitting in my living room. And I don't know, for best tip for writers, like I would just say like just always be curious, like, and you know, use your writing as a way to funnel your curiosity about life, about people, about experiences, and like always just be hungry all the time and pay attention. Because I don't know, like I guess I could like give you practical tips, like you know, shave and bathe. Yeah, I just think like curiosity and like being able to listen to other people and like watch the world is really important. Hi, Al.
You talked about you know how everybody, but students in particular, happen to fall in love with their work when they first do it. They think it's awesome. Sometimes they come back the next day to realize it's not all that awesome. When you wrote either the stories in Withdrawal Method or People Park, did you do a lot of re-editing, rewriting?
Yeah, this book took 8 years to write. This one took 5 or 6, and it was, I mean, 25% of the time was spent on first drafts, and 75% would be spent on editing and rewriting. That said, one of my favorite writers is this guy Cesar Ira. He's an Argentine writer. He writes 2 books a year. They're 100 pages long, and he doesn't edit. It's just first draft, and that's what goes out into the world. And it's not for me, it's not my taste, and the books are terrible, but they're like kind of cool, because it's just like someone going crazy and writing, and it's just like this, almost a stream of consciousness sort of thing. But for me, like editing is really important, and and especially for like academic writing, it's obviously because you're trying to be coherent and get an idea across, and you're not going to be able to do it. You're going to be able to get close to it or move toward it on the first try, but then you just really got to hone.
I just think about People Park, and I can't imagine an editor being able to give you a lot of advice, because the book is a little different. Or did you do most of your own self-editing?
No.
Did you get a lot of advice?
I had a team of editors. I had 3 people work with me. So yeah, it's kind of a crazy book, but they were great to work with. Last question? Or?
I think our time pretty much done.
Oh shit! Oh yeah, sorry. I thought we were going to 3. Okay, yeah, bye.
So thank you.
Yeah, guys, thanks so much for sitting here and.